Hey, Rainy Joe here, and this is 1000 Reviews, the series where I plan on reviewing every single album from the 1001 Albums Listened to Before You Die book. And today we're looking at Hüsker Du's 1987 release, Warehouse Songs and Stories. Warehouse Songs and Stories was released underneath the Warner Brothers label, produced by Grant Hart and Bob Mould, with art direction from Daniel Corrigan, nationality USA, and a running time of 69 minutes and 39 seconds. With this album being approximately an hour and 9 minutes long and 20 songs long, I'm not going to waste any time, and I'm just going to jump right into the first track here, These Important Years. This drumming feels very faint, very alt-rock sound, which is impressive, I guess, for 1987, kind of early, ahead of the curve. It's like a shaker in the background there. The tambourine kind of takes over. Not loving the vocals, nor do I like just the general sound of this one. Kind of bland and dated, kind of dated. If that is a taste of what's to come for the next hour of this album, then I'm sorry to say that I'm probably not going to enjoy this thing, because that song feels pretty dated, and not at all that interesting. I think the production side of it especially feels very dated. It feels very early 90s, late 80s, something that you'd hear in like a grocery store. Did not love it. Gonna give that a 4 out of 10. So off to a rough start for sure. On to the next track, Charity, Chastity, Prudence, and Hope. Bit more of an interesting title, so that might be good. Alright. Instrumentally a bit more interesting than the first. This sort of guitar work where it's so amped out and out of control that was so prevalent in the late 80s is the kind of guitar work that I don't personally like myself, which is shocking considering I like noise music in general, but I feel like the late 80s tried to make these really boring riffs out of it that don't feel that engaging at all, and this track is only an extension of that. I feel like Dinosaur Jr. kind of did a similar thing, and I don't really enjoy that either, so this is sort of more of the same of that. Alright. Sort of the same complaints I had with the first. Dated. Very dated. Definitely, I'm not the audience for this so far. 4.5 out of 5, or out of 10, sorry, 4.5 out of 10. Standing in the Rain is the next track. Let's just jump into it. Not loving this album. I'm sorry, but just really not. If you're a huge fan of this album, let me in the comments know why, because maybe I'm just missing something. Here comes the rain. I think a lot of sound effects sort of in the mix. This man was stood up from what the lyrics tell us. I really don't like the vocalist either. Bob Mould, not the most engaging vocalist. Four. I don't understand this album so far. Back from Somewhere on the fourth track. This is still an hour left of this album. and I'm not loving it. Back from somewhere, let's just get into it. At this point, I want to rip it off like a band-aid. Even like lyrically, they're very like bland and typical lyrics. There's nothing here like that interesting to really raise the quality of this sort of songwriting to any higher level. It's kind of just boring and straightforward, kind of like the rest of this thing so far. I find myself enjoying this part of the song, the slower part. I'll give that one a 5. Knowing that they were a hardcore punk band before they went this alternative rock route, kind of interests me because I like hardcore punk more than alt rock. So maybe I would enjoy them more in that aspect. But again, what they're doing here feels very dated, feels very bland. And sure, maybe at the time it was new and visionary and something to be listened to. And I definitely can see the influence of it maybe. But other than that, if what it's influenced feels dated at this point in time, you know, why bother in a way? So that's just how I feel. But yeah, that's a 5 out of 10 track. On to the next one, Ice Cold Ice. There's one thing this band, I guess, has that this album is energy, but the energy still feels kind of forced and kind of commercialized, kind of. Very fabricated, at least to me. A really long fade out, jeez. It's like 40 seconds of fade out. 4. That's what I'm giving that one. What the fuck? Still a 4, but that was a very aggressive jump scare at the end there. I did not expect that at all. On to the next one, You're a Soldier. Oh, kind of like this. I'm a sucker for drums. I think this is like the worst one yet. Like the vocals are so bland and nasally and whiny. This feels like something you would hear in a bar, like late at night. Very like karaoke in style and tone. What a boring, just uninteresting, uninspired sort of sound. Maybe inspired at the time, but compared to what we've heard, this kind of sums up much of the 90s alt-rock scene. At least the more commercialized radio side of it. So You're a Soldier gets a 3, because that was horrendously boring. Could Be the One. Could You Be the One is the 7th track, sorry. Maybe this will be the one that will turn things around. You know? But I doubt it. Oh, this is a bit more interesting. A bit of a detour in sound there. Doesn't do a whole lot though. It's not saving this album, that's for sure. That certainly was not the one like I was hoping. It gets a 4 again. Below average for me. Definitely not hitting what I consider mediocre even. Poppy and 80s production. There's just something about the style of 80s production that is just so incredibly dated now. Like most things, I think, from the 80s. If there's any era that has dated the worst, it would be the 80s. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a 4. Not loving this. Too much spices next. Let's just get it over with at this point. Can't believe I'm not even halfway through this album yet. I do have a reason to be bored. It's this album. No spice in this album. That's for sure. I've never yawned so much during an album before. Three, friend, you've got to fall. Fall asleep is what they should have put, because that's what this does. If you haven't caught on yet, I don't enjoy any of this. They could probably use this album to interrogate war criminals. Like, what's even the hit on this album? I don't know. I guess Could You Be the One? This is kind of music that I feel like I just kind of tune out as I listen to it. Like, if I heard this in public, I would phase it out entirely. Because it's just so bland. Give that one a 3. I'm so bored at this point. 3 out of 10. Going on to the 10th track, halfway through the album, Visionary. This will be the halfway mark. Cannot believe we're only halfway. I don't even have anything to react to with this anymore. There's nothing for me to react to, because my reactions are all going to be the same, which is that this sucks. This is not engaging, and I don't want to pretend to want to care anymore. So I'm gonna switch things up real quick with this video. That song's coming to an end. I give it a 3. A 3.5, actually. I'll give it, partly out of pity. I will listen to the rest of the album, and if I have a reaction, I will react to it. However, if I don't, I'm not going to put it in the video. Just to keep this thing shorter. It does not need to be longer than it's going to be if I were to react to every single one. So I will listen to the rest. If there's anything new or anything that needs to be said, it will come after this point. If not, the video is going to come to an end, and I will give my final thoughts, and I will give the concluding statement. But so far, I don't imagine that's going to happen. So we'll see what I think. Hold the phone. Maybe I spoke too soon. She Floated Away is written like a sea shanty, which I can't complain too much about that. That's an interesting turn of events for sure for this album. And I kind of dig it more so than what I've heard so far. At least it's a bit more unique and a bit more original. Too bad the production's still kind of shit, but other than that, the stylistic change here is welcomed, at least. It's a shame the guitar is still so uninteresting. Okay. I'll give that one a 5 just for the stylistic change. It's better than the rest so far. So there's that. Wait a minute. That's interesting. That's engaging. That's shit. Boring. That's engaging. I like that sound better. Ruined. Slowing down things. Nice. Ruined. Terrible. This is them ping-ponging between good and bad. They could almost be interesting. Almost, keyword. Alright. Closing things out like the rest of this album by being excruciatingly boring. Okay. Now that is finished, and I can finally say I made it through this horrendous, boring, uninspired, generic, bland, very dated, poorly produced 80s album, I can go ahead and say that it is a terrible album in my opinion. This is the worst album I've heard, I think, so far in this book, I would go as far to say. It is just, for all reasons stated, a long, bloated mess. You know, I barely have mentioned the length. This thing is over an hour long, an hour and 10, a double album, 20 songs, and it does not justify that at all because it doesn't change anything. All these songs sort of blend together eventually and feel like one long, very dated 80s song. And for that, I give this a soft rating of 4.1 and a hard rating of just 3 out of 10. Don't like it. Don't ever want to hear it again. Just want to turn it off. And I give it an NE for not essential. So Warehouse Songs and Stories by Hüsker is not good. 3 out of 10. Not essential. We'll leave it at that. But I will say the best thing about it is that it has ended. That's my favorite part of this whole album, is the fact that it ends. So that's something. Let's go ahead and see what the next album we listen to is in the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. Hopefully, it'll be better than this. I would imagine it would, because how can it get any worse than this? I don't really know. Random number generator 1 to 1001. Generate. Number 165, which will be the album. 165 being the album Hot Buttered Soul by Isaac Hayes, 1969. Pretty excited for that. Big Isaac Hayes fan. So again, definitely better than what we just listened to. So I will review that in about a week from now. Anyways, if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe if you want to follow along and listen to every single album from the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. And as always, my name is Randy Joe, and I'm signing off.